Hello, everyone. I'm Bo from Brutal Commentary, and today I'm going to be breaking down our featured fight for UFC Vegas 113. In this matchup, we have Jailton Almeida taking on Rizvan Kuniev. So this is going to be short notice for Almeida. It was originally supposed to be Ryan Spann versus Rizvan Kuniev. Unfortunately, Spann pulled out due to injury and stepped in ranked heavyweight contender Jailton Almeida, who is now risking his spot in the top 6 against unranked Rizvan Kuniev, who, need us not forget, in his last fight, which was his UFC debut last June, he took on ranked contender Curtis Blaydes. Now, granted, it was a close fight, and you could argue he should have won that fight, but you also have to take into consideration Curtis Blaydes tore both his knees in that fight, if I remember correctly. So that's why Curtis Blaydes looked really off that night. Now, I'll say this. I thought the Ryan Spann fight made a lot of sense, and I was going to pick Kuniev to beat Spann, as that just made a lot of sense. Kuniev, pretty experienced heavyweight, beat Renan Ferreira in the PFL. Granted, he took a lot of, banned substance for that fight, but still beat a really good name outside the UFC. Overall, seemed like just enough of a talent that I think he would be a ranked contender. But now he fights another ranked contender in his second crack at the top 10. The only reason this makes sense is that the UFC is essentially punishing Jailton Almeida for that terrible fight with Volkov at UFC 321. That's the only reason why I can think that Jailton Almeida agreed to this. This just his punishment. And, this is a fight where I think the matchup on paper says a lot before the first punch is thrown. You got Almeida, who is physically dominant. I say well-rounded with a grain of salt. I mean, he can throw some good strikes. You saw with Sergey Spivak, but primarily a very good control-based grappler. Easily the best jiu-jitsu in the division. And except maybe Tom Aspinall, but, we've yet to see a lot of Tom Aspinall's ground game. So for now, I definitely think Almeida has the best jiu-jitsu, certainly the best positional jiu-jitsu in heavyweight. Meanwhile, you have Kuniev, who's tough, aggressive, and a good scrappy striker. Has some Dagestan wrestling to him, that chain wrestling against the fence. But I don't think he's faced the kind of size, grappling, and technical variety that Almeida brings. Yes, he's fought giants like Renan Ferreira, but he's not fought someone with the same athleticism, I don't think. Now, I'll get more into their styles and break it down better, but that's just my general thought. This is definitely a classic, strong, skilled, and patient guy versus a bit younger, aggressive. Actually, yeah, I say younger when literally Kuniev is about a year younger, but you get my idea. Aggressive brawler matchup, and Almeida, I think, has the tools to dictate where the fight goes from start to finish, which is why I'm picking him. But really quick, looking at their last five. As I said for Kuniev, he has one UFC fight right now. That is the loss of Curtis Blaydes, which was last June in Azerbaijan. Again, a close fight. And, Curtis Blaydes did, like I said, tear both his knees up. So does explain his performance. But before that, his Contender Series win against Hugo Kumba. Before that, the, no contest of Renan Ferreira, and then some fights in Eagle FC. For Jailton Almeida, he's currently 3-2 in his last 5 fights, beating Derek Lewis in an equally boring fight, then losing his first UFC fight to Curtis Blaydes, where he was out grappling him for vast majority till Curtis Blaydes was able to stop one of the takedowns and then hammer-fisted Almeida into oblivion. Then got on a nice 2-fight win streak, making quick work of Alexander Romanov in the first round, then TKOing Sergey Spivak in the first round last January. Then, as I mentioned, lost to Volkov in a terrible fight. So, with that being said, let's get down to the breakdown. Starting with Jailton Almeida, he definitely doesn't fit the mold of most modern heavyweights. I mean, he is one of the better athletes in the division. Certainly not a blob by any stretch of the imagination. Has some good versatility to him, but primarily that versatility comes in his takedowns, his wrestling, and his grappling. Almeida, not very comfortable in the striking at times. He will throw these weird jumping punches. In fact, you see it in almost all of his fights. He primarily avoids the grappling. Striking. Mostly uses his teep kicks, like I said, these lunging punches, except for Sergey Spivak, where he actually showed good punching form and good power. But primarily, it's his real strength is his control. Almeida is so good on the ground. Very few fighters can beat him there because one, he's actually a former light heavyweight. He took a heavyweight fight on short notice, and then realized, hey, I'm faster, stronger, and a better grappler than pretty much all of these guys. I might as well just make easy work at heavyweight, and he did for the most part. And Almeida was a bit fun in terms of he would actually get a lot of good finishes, whether it be ground and pound or submission. It's just when he started dealing with guys who weren't easily controlled, or at the very least were competent enough to survive, it just became incredibly fucking boring. But make no mistake, Almeida, when he takes someone who's clearly not of his level, he can usually just run them over and submit them pretty quickly, like against Jair Rosenstrike, or TKO them like Parker Porter, for example. When Almeida is such a clear level above him, he usually shines and looks very good while doing it. Against someone close to his level, he either fumbles the bag or makes it incredibly boring. He will blanket you. Meanwhile, for Kuniev, he's aggressive and likes to press forward. He can throw heavy strikes, keep pressure, and try to overwhelm opponents. His style can be fun to watch at times because he's constantly moving and looking for openings. But that aggression comes at risk as he tends to commit to shots, which does leave him exposed. And against someone who's good at like countering, like with his takedowns and controlling positions, that can be a detriment. Now, seeing how these styles clash, I think the fight comes down to whether Kuniev can impose his will before Almeida can lock him down. Early on, Kuniev might try and push the pace and make Almeida reactive instead of proactive, and possibly time a knee or an uppercut, or make Almeida just sloppy with his takedown entries. But the problem is, Almeida is very good with his timing and very good at his versatility. Whether it's mixing in his striking and then immediately shooting for a takedown, or just his reactive takedowns are even very well timed. As Almeida, he's very good at reading forward pressure, and if Kuniev overcommits, Almeida can counter with a takedown. The one problem is we've seen lately that these refs are starting to stand fighters up more frequently if they try and stall. You saw it repeatedly with the Volkov fight. And that is definitely a problem for Almeida. If Almeida does not start using much more ground and pound, then Almeida will start being forced to stand up like he did in his last fight. Almeida's grappling is a huge factor, as if the fight hits the clinch or the mat, he's going to take over. It's just plain and simple. Kuniev has good Dagestan-like wrestling, but once Almeida gets on top, he ain't getting back up until the ref lets him back up. That is just the simple truth in my eyes. But it's weird. I say all this, but Almeida's shown he has good ground pound. He has shown it. So I don't know why I have to say it like it's the most obvious thing in the world. He needs to throw more ground and pound in order to keep the fight on the ground. But here I am. Yeah, as you can see, I'm not like the biggest Almeida fan, nor am I the biggest fan of his style. But I can't deny it's effective for the most part. He only has 2 losses, and they're against the top 5 of heavyweight, which when you reach the top 5 heavyweight is actually really good fighters. But like I said, Kuniev has he has moments to him. He could land some really effective strikes, and he might land shots early and test Almeida's patience. But I just think Almeida's grappling, his top control, and his takedown timing is just too much of a factor to overlook. And if he gets aggressive like he has before, I definitely see him getting the win here, of not just via decision, but via finish. If he can lock in it like a submission, because he has good jiu-jitsu. He has good arm triangles. He has good rear naked chokes. He's got good submission ability. I just think if Almeida, once again unlocks that like he has before, I think he can get the win here easily, instead of oh boy, I'm picking Almeida, but if he doesn't be aggressive, the judges might work Kuniev just for simply throwing more strikes off his back. But for my official prediction, I am going to go with Jalton Almeida, and you know what? I might be reaching for the stars here, but I'm going to pick him via submission this fight. I think he can land some good ground and pound. I think he's learned from his mistakes. He's going to land some good ground and pound, force Kuniev to give up his back, and then cinch in a rear naked choke and finish the fight from there, and maybe regain some of the hype, or at least make it less of a meme that he's such a boring guy. But with that being said, My official prediction, once again, I'm going to pick Jailton Almeida, and I'm going to pick him via submission in this fight. But with that being said, that's been my breakdown of this matchup. If you enjoyed the video, like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below on who you think is going to win. But until then, I've been Bo from Brutal Commentary. I thank you all for listening. Remember, stay calm, stay respectful, and enjoy the violence. I'll see y'all next time.